Okay,
Yeah.
Andre, how's it, man?
Luck and you, buddy.
Cool, man. Yeah, so I think one of the reasons we got you on again now is
It's
because
been a year,
our
eh?
last podcast was it a year? Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a
exactly. Yeah,
year.
it's about a year. Is it got the most views so far of all the episodes?
Mm-hmm.
So you bought yourself a seat. No,
But this is season 2, though, isn't it?
no, there's no seasons, man.
No, because the thing is, I'm quite proud of myself since I spoke to you, and it's a bit mind blowing. I've watched that thing quite a couple times because, sure, bro, it touched on a lot, eh? Like in a very short
Mm,
period of time, and
mm,
yeah, I was amazed. Like that thing has carried me, and I can think my journey from basically last winter to another winter. I made it. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. And I like what you're doing. I've literally have listened to all the other people. And, yeah, and I don't
mm.
really understand how yeah, YouTube's weird, man, and the world of media is very weird, and the world is just weird at the moment. So yeah, but I feel that literally, and once again, I'm not trying to be soppy or anything, but that really helped me because I don't know how I did that thing, and that was an amazement. Like watching it again, it was like kind of a bit of an out of body experience because I wasn't really in a good place at that time. Yet the
Okay,
podcast was pretty cool, and I think it lit
okay.
up stuff for me. It gave me so much stuff, touch points that I can work on. I also hearing your story and all the other people's stories, we all got trauma, man. I,
Mm,
and in a weird way, I think I kind of lived a bit of the life that your dad had to have lived, being like this political rebel outcast. You know what I mean? And it's been difficult in a place like Pretoria. You know what I mean? Where I
okay.
spent 19 weeks in my car, but I was camping. I found a cool spot in the
Mm.
mountains just outside Pretoria, and slowly but surely, I pieced myself together, and I'm grateful to be where I am. I'm feeling a lot
Mm.
more like healthy. I was burning up, man. You know what I mean? Like when you've like, and that's the thing. If once you've taken a lot of trauma and it becomes compounded, the whole day can be a struggle.
Mm. Complex trauma.
Yeah.
Complex trauma. Mm.
Hmm.
Now, okay. So, but the other reason we chatted about having this doing this episode was because you obviously from the last podcast. If whoever hasn't watched it, I think go watch that one, and you understand a little bit about yeah.
So back, yeah, go for it. I'm listening.
So you come from an asset management background. So
Yes.
you've analyzed companies before you invest in them for the funds that you were running. And you told me the other day one of those was Steinhoff.
Mm.
And you had an opinion about Steinhoff, and so maybe just go into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I believe it was around about 2015. I should have actually done my homework before, but it doesn't matter. It'll
Mm,
be more or less right. So, if you remember in the last podcast, we talked about that I'd launched my own fund, and so
mm,
I'd been through a lot of iterations, and I'd finally got this little dream vehicle of mine, and I attracted a lot of money. I all of a sudden everybody wanted to talk to me. I was kind of flavor of the street, and I had just won back the mantle that I had at Sunlum back in 2005 to 2000, before I left, the end of 2009. So yeah, it seemed that my life was going pretty well, and I got a call from one of the large brokers at Sunlum Private Wealth, Sunlum Private Investments at the time, SPI. And I was running money for, I mean, I suppose, I don't know, I suppose we could, but let's say, the CEO of ShopRite at the time was one of his clients who was also happened to, because of him, be one of my clients. And that day, Steinhoff had announced in the morning that they were buying a company listed on the New York Stock Exchange called Mattress World. or it might have been the Nasdaq. I'm not 100% sure. But why it perked my interest, and this is once again how people's realities kind of align with each other. At that time, I wanted my fund to go from a long only, highly concentrated, long equity global to being able to short. Because at that stage,
hedge fund,
you
yeah.
know, I'd had that one massive growth spurt, and from there it was almost like I was all of a sudden a blind man swinging my bat. My calculations on cash flows and all of those things remained the same. We built up a very big position in AIG. We built up a very big position in General Motors. And I saw these things should be like kind of home runs, but I could feel something was changing because Tesla. Um, there was a company called Triple D, 3D, who came out and they got will.i.am to be their chief technology officer. It was the crazy time. It was quite a crazy time in the market around innovation and all of this new tech stuff. And I made a lot of money shorting that Triple D. I just looked at it and I was like, this is a load of garbage. And in my own personal position, I shorted using single stock futures. I think I made like I put down 10K. I don't know because it's geared. So I made like 100K in like one day. And then I was like, ooh, the shorting game looks fun. And at the time, Hindenburg, and we'll talk a little bit who Hindenburg are, these sort of guys, I'd become fascinated by books like Moneyball by Michael Lewis. And then he had another one called something like Cowboys. And the most famous Michael Lewis book would be Barbarians of the Gate. And I saw that we were going into a similar period, like 70s, 80s, junk debt, Wall Street, greed is good. But this time it was being driven not by, the Wall Street types of the 80s. Those were like psychopaths in pinstripes. The guys had morphed now into the Elon Musks and the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, and it became increasingly difficult. I imagine it would be something similar to the dot-com bubble that we had in the late 90s, and it's like Tesla now is still a good example, but I mean, back then we thought it was super overvalued, and now it's gone up I don't know how many factors, and the world's a different place. But to get back to the story, so they asked me, Steinhoff, which at that stage was now proclaiming that they were going to become the largest furniture company in the world, needed they'd already obviously have big, through Bruno Steinhoff that came into the structure. They already had Europe and Poland and all of this going. And they wanted to make a splash in America, and they bought a company called Mattress World. They made an offer to buy the whole shareholding of Mattress World at 113% premium. Now, I can't tell you
what does that mean exactly? Explain it.
So let's say Mattress World was trading at $10 a share on the close the previous day. They came in and said, we'll pay $23.
Yeah.
So it was like, but what made it so amazing, because it went up even more from there, because it was the most shorted stock on the Nasdaq or the New York Stock Exchange, whichever one it may have been. So it caused, in a couple of days, it basically wiped some people out, and this got the attention of Hindenburg because they were one of the victims. So they said, well, we've taken quite a big knock here. But a Mattress World wouldn't. Remember, these guys short baskets, so they'll short like 100 different companies. So now they've taken a big knock on a relatively small position where they're betting, because at that stage it was already speculation in the market that Mattress World was basically a money laundering operation. These guys were way into their investigation. Remember, they don't just short something; they like investigators. They go out, and so
Hindenburg. Sorry, is Hindenburg a hedge fund?
It's a short only hedge fund.
Short only.
Short only.
Okay,
That's how they make money.
Okay.
So they look for frauds and stuff, and then they try to take these guys down, and they profit. They take a position that the thing's going to fall. So they'll use, you can
Okay.
either borrow stock for,
Mm.
20 basis points a year, 30 basis points a year, or you can actually bet in the option market or the futures market, but specifically options, that the thing's going to fall. And then that's how they make money. So then they were busy going after Mattress World, but hadn't announced it, even though they call the short interest, and it caused a short squeeze, which hurt a lot of people. And then, I mean, it's so silly what Marcus Jooste was doing, because at the same time he was trying to move to Frankfurt, uh, move the
Okay.
listing, and he
Yes.
was in negotiations already to buy ShopRite. So Steinhoff would have swallowed ShopRite. You understand?
Okay.
At
Okay.
the same, like, this guy was going crazy. He was buying all over the world. There's some other stories how he ruined people in Neisner by buying up all the forestry and crashing the market. He's a total sociopath, because I'm not sure he's dead either. Like, I just want to see a picture, because, like, these guys are notorious, and the amount of money that guy destroyed. And, that's what, when you and I were talking the other day, is that the whole
Yeah.
Netflix or whatever, the Showmax story that they did, was so superficial, and it's a cover up. There's so much more to that story, because basically, where were all the, okay, so to this is how then my battle started. I didn't even know these guys had it in for me, but I get a call in the morning. Poof, I'm at my, I used to work, I was really in a good place back then, trying to put together the big deal for all that money I told you about last time that was going to come in, and strategically our performance wasn't great, but it was all right. And I get a call, and the guy, he says, Andre, we need your opinion. Steinhoff has bought a company in America, and the board basically would like your opinion. ShopRite
Okay.
board now, CEO.
Okay.
About
Okay.
Steinhoff, because they in now talking to each other at that very
They're in talks
moment
too,
about
acquisition talks.
exactly. So I looked at it for that about 2 or 3 hours, and I was very, because already I'd done it, because I was something, a scourge that these guys basically copied from these Barbarians of the Gate, which Barbarians in the Gate talks about when RJR, which was the largest tobacco company in the world, in America, merged with the biggest biscuit company, Nabisco. And no one thought at the
Okay.
time, and it's a very famous story how they used junk debt to finance all these sort of things and whatever. But so basically, I looked at it, and they were using something, and it was all over already. It's called a roll up. So if you can just gobble up companies, the accounting becomes more and more difficult to analyze, and especially when at that
Right.
stage there was also big arguments about South African regulation versus global regulation versus IFRS, which is international, and this,
Mm.
and I
Accounting standards.
submitted
It
it
was accounting standards, you mean?
exactly. So I basically at the time said, I'm very certain that Steinhoff, and it had been an open secret in the market. The first guy, my first job, no, it was my third job. When I got into Sanlam, in the back door, I had to go to a lesson with the head of analysis or whatever, and he at that time, the guy who did forensic type stuff, and I sat with him, and the case study we used, live case study, was Steinhoff. He said to
Okay.
me at that time, this guy's so good. Look how he plays around and he moves stuff between assets, and so it was always kind of an open secret. And but I then gave that opinion, and that allowed Whitey Basson, and he said to me later, I owe you 4.3 billion, because that's how much his shares in Shoprite were worth. It gave Whitey, I think, the clout to delay he fight the fight.
Deal.
And 3 weeks later, Steinhoff blew up, or 4 weeks later, Steinhoff blew up. And I kind of forgot about it, because at that time I just went on, and but it's something that's come back to kind of haunt me, and it's. But then again, South Africa is notorious, man. Like, no one has ever been found guilty of insider trading in South Africa, ever.
Right. Okay.
That's
And it's
crazy, eh?
huge in this. It's huge in the US, right?
What,
It's
getting
a
nailed?
huge thing that people get.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
getting
yeah.
nailed for insider trading.
You should watch
Yeah.
that series called Billions. The same guy who plays in
Hmm.
Homeland. Like, it's
I've
crazy
watched
there.
some episodes. Yeah.
And there the fines are huge, like, and the thing is that will be interesting. I know, and that's what we need in this country. We need a FSCA, like a special court for financial services, because some of the stuff that's happening out there. I mean, we're seeing an epidemic in the country of people killing each other for life insurance.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. But no, so you reckon it's a regulatory problem in terms of the regulator not
Yeah, because
necessarily
it's
enforcing
like
it, or
the issue was always, and it's been the issue why we had the financial crisis, whatever. There's people on either side. You go to the regulator, you work in the asset managers, then you're in compliance either side. So it's like a revolving door. You know what I mean? And vested interests control those doors. Yeah, I just think it's if we could move towards, and that's actually kind of what I've been angling towards you guys. I'm quite keen to start a union for people that understand collaboration, that want to build another system. So what I've realized, I came to the realization I was going to try and convert people to ideology that was diagrammatically opposite to their wishes. And I was trying to convince those
okay,
people, where I think, I think there's plenty of us out there that want to in collaboration. And then that's where a bank gets formed. So it'll be interesting. I love history, and we were forced to study these things when we were trying to replicate, Hendrik de Tooy, who's the founder and CEO of Investec Asset Management. I worked there, so we kind of knew the history of and I always try to, like, those stories where,
which is
he
now
had got fired
91.
from old,
It's not Investec
hey?
Asset Management anymore. It's now
Yeah, it's
91.
91 now. They've split.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
from the
in
bank
because
and
in
the asset
COVID, I
management.
think that in COVID there was literally, that they had to do that transaction, otherwise the whole thing was going to blow up.
What do you mean? And why do you think it would have blown up? Explain blown up.
Because in South Africa, literally, they convinced it for there to, because the asset management guys in overseas had made such big blunders that it looked like it could sink the bank in South Africa, which was kind of, I believe, in the
Right.
end, another way where they scared us into letting assets decouple from their source. I mean, Naspers is another example, like. And unfortunately, maybe it's. I was a huge proponent for these sort of things in the past, buddy. So people can go back,
Mm.
and I was the perma bull on global, and
Okay.
and I'm now the opposite. So I just think, in Africa, and if we can, it's interesting, and these things are that's why I'm so glad. I mean, can you see the difference in me since last time?
Well, like you said, it looks like we had a good podcast, even though you were having a difficult time. So I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily know you were having a difficult time either. So,
No,
but
but I'm
I
saying,
mean,
like,
obviously it's a year later.
yeah. But I'm saying that back then, the one thing was I
Yeah.
was all about the past. I'm now, like, very much again about the future, because and that's
Okay.
why you must come to Pretoria, buddy. You're going to be so impressed, and we'll organize something to come up here. Like, there's the country seems to be bifurcated at the moment. There's a lot of people ran to Cape Town, and now a lot of people stayed put here, and a lot of people have left the country. So there's actually, like, there's now a disequilibrium. Pretoria, Gauteng. I think there's going to be a revival this side, because I think people are looking for. Cape Town's very expensive.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what killed me there in the end. Even though I had a big big pot of money saved up at the, much less than I thought because that's what once I shut one basically, and we maybe can talk about that later. When my fund got shut down on me, like it wasn't my choice, and I was very very upset how it was done. But anyway, I got through it. It was an incredible trauma. Now, can you imagine? Now this time it was my real baby. It got taken away from me. But I still had my asset management company, and I decided, I had a lot of money, and throughout 2019, I paid my licenses, and then in COVID, when the world blew up, I missed my annual payment of 13,000 or whatever it was, and
Regulator fees.
yeah, just my annual fees. And in COVID, while in hard lockdown, they uh, 3 people got together to have a hearing and suspend my license without due course, without me even being there in a state of emergency, and they weren't allowed to be in the office to do it. And that's where we come back to the Steinhoff nonsense, because
Okay.
then I realized at that stage that the industry will watch you, and they'll even, I think, glorify you at a stage to see but if you become too troublesome, then they blackball you, and then they want to
Okay.
push you further and further towards the fringes. And that's the problem, guys like, I mean, there were a couple guys throughout and in different professions where there were similar
Right.
stories. You get punished for being a whistleblower.
Right.
And that's the
Okay.
issue. So, and that's
But
where,
you weren't necessarily you didn't know you were being a whistleblower. You did an analysis on a request for the
yeah,
ShopRite board,
yeah.
and Whitey
But that
Basson was
led
obviously
to,
happy with
and
you.
obviously I didn't even know that my name had been pulled into it. But obviously it would have been pulled in, and I was just busy with other stuff. And I think,
Mm.
that's my thesis, at least. I mean, what's been done to me by the financial services, the fact that nobody will touch me, buddy. You know what I mean? I was
Mm.
homeless, like,
Mm.
saying to people, just give me anything, like, train young. I've got a good CV, but I realized, okay, and I mean, I wasn't myself anymore, whatever. But there was a definite, so multiple blackballings, I suppose, eventually makes you untouchable, and. Yeah, it's just it's farcical to me because and that what is the FSCA? What have they done? How have they changed? And is it not time for us to rethink where uh, almost like a public a special court? Because at the moment there's so much clogged up in the financial system and people stealing from each other, and this we
Mm.
almost need like a TRC, because what's happened, in 2007, buddy, when we built Sanlam Global Best Ideas, we were doing that into the wind because the rand was getting stronger and this, but the global options supercharged or negated any, because we were riding that same wave, kind of that emerging market wave, and then they
Mm.
crashed it. And ever since then, we've gone back to the pessimism that a guy like Magnus Heistek and these old school guys from the 80s. I mean, the fact that Magnus
Mm.
Heistek was basically a propaganda plant for the apartheid government for whatever economic laws they wanted to make at the time. That guy is now a fund manager that just loves slating South Africa. Is it a
Mm.
surprise? He's sticking to his, and that's the problem. The stuff is infiltrated. He's. I mean, stuff I know about that guy, and I don't even want to get into a tussle with him because he's not in my league. I am a fund manager. He's not a fund manager. He's a journalist who tells people he's a
Yeah,
fund
yeah, he
manager.
used to be a journalist.
The fact that
Yeah.
he called Tiana Lapop and a whatever. I don't think he's seen. I've sat across. I went to go see him when I was out of Sanlam, and I realized I'd be blackballed by all the big money, and I was going to have to build my fund $10,000 or $100,000 blocks at a time. I went to go see him. I went to go
Yeah.
see everyone. I did a roadshow. You know what I mean? And like at that
Mm.
time, he was just on about biotech, and once again, you know me, maybe it's. I just said to him, "Do you understand biotech? I'm pretty smart. I've looked at it, and I think it's garbage." Because,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
gone.
but he's like, "Look at the graphs. Look at the graphs." You know what I mean? Like, because biotech is. I mean, so
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So no,
But I mean, he would have
that's
actually
my chase.
loved your fun because you were in offshore. You were full on
Yeah,
offshore,
we were
right?
offshore, but dude, I was at that time, you know, I was really because I was trying to see that's the thing, the stay in your lane. Okay, so they like said to me, okay, global equities, and then I'm like, I want to short and I want to go into private equity, and then I wanted to basically knew what this one would be like, because if you could combine those, and and the, and then at that time there was a crisis in 2015 where some hedge funds were falling over because the guys were making so much money. So it always happens. One of the partners goes crazy and like wants to put his yoga instructor as a portfolio manager, and then the guys fight, and you could go up and buy like whole hedge funds, but just you buying the assets. And then they started blocking me. They started blocking me, and they started blocking me. And the one particular, remember I told you about the investment committee. So one guy loves
Yes.
me, and the other guy hates me, and the
So
other
when you
guy
say
just
who was blocking you,
because remember
your board.
yeah, because I signed it. See, that's the thing. I signed before the money. They said if you sign this and have an investment committee with two guys that
Yeah.
okay your list, your ability to buy and
Yes.
sell, um, then
Yeah.
we're going to give you all this money because now it's a lot,
Yeah.
and it would be good to have these guys check your work. But I never realized a
Yeah.
check means they could block it, and like,
They
and
could
for the
block you. Yeah.
totally irrational reasons, and it ate me
And
up,
this
buddy. So
money was
then,
coming from the money was coming from who?
so the promise was, remember Raynet, which is Jan Rupert's family Luxembourg listed entity, also listed in Johannesburg. So that was a way that you could funnel money out of the country into Luxembourg. They basically spun out British American tobacco shares, and the way they could do it is because BATS was traded both in London and in South Africa, and they, the very close correlation. So they spun a whole bunch of shares out instead of to save tax in South Africa, they put it in Luxembourg, which gave them money for bringing the shares there. And then the design was that this thing would then buy. And so out of that pot, that initial 8 million I asked for, when they gave me 20, came from there. Then they wanted to give me 80 out of that pot and 80 out of another pot. And then
Dollars or
unfortunately,
rands?
greed got to me. Like I said to you, but I thought it would be a good thing, I was chasing size. Like I said to you at the time,
But was it dollars or rands? The
dollars,
820
dollars,
US,
dollars.
not
So
Namibian
I would have
dollars.
gone to 240. I would have gone to 250. I would have gone from, remember I told you I went from 8 to 88,
Yeah.
which would have meant I would have gone from 88 to 240 or whatever, like overnight, and have a big
Mm.
pot of cash to invest in other ideas and things. You know what I mean? And yeah, but it didn't end that way, dude. And it started a spiral for me, where the frustration ate me up, and my personal life started getting weird, and because just I wasn't winning anymore, and I was missing. The
Mm.
worst thing was like I'd write a report, go through all their hoops, get them both on the line, present it, and then I got shot down, and 12 days later, the thing gets bought out for 78% premium or something. That some of those hedge funds I talked about.
Yeah, so you
And
couldn't
yeah, it
move
was,
on you couldn't move on your analysis quickly enough
yes.
and make money anymore. You would have
Yeah,
made
I had to
money.
ask, so my ideas could be shot down. And it
Okay.
became so frustrating because then the investment committee just kept it. There were two guys who counted. But what they started doing is there would be a table of like 7 people, the lawyers, the half of them, who then start poking, giving me like talking about stuff they don't know, like because they read the Financial Times earlier, and that was the one got shot down, I presented because this hedge fund had fallen 83%, a listed hedge fund had fallen 83%. I presented on it, and the guy read in the FT that the two founders are fighting with each other. And I'm like, that's the reason it's so cheap. It's irrational.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we don't get
Yeah.
involved in messy businesses. What do you mean? And it's like, ach, yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
But, in the end, Alma, already at that stage, like I said to you, I didn't want to be in that world anymore. I was very much looking for an exit, and then I thought, I found Sears and me, we bought so much of this thing because the CEO had this whole vision how online shopping would not take over. So he's buying up all these cheap strip malls and he's going to transform it into areas that people want to live in and whatever, a la Pretoria or you know what I mean? What the sort of developments that took place. And I thought, wow, what a great idea. We've already done that in South Africa, built the Stain cities and the Mooi Kloofs of the world. This would make a lot of
Mm.
sense. It'd probably uplift. And, it's the second time, or at least, but the second big time that a CEO, I watched the CEO just enrich himself and his buddies. The first time it happened to me was at Sanlam. At one stage at Sanlam, we owned a big chunk of Dell Computer, and I just kept
Right.
buying. And we're
Yeah.
a big fund. We had almost $100 million invested in Dell, and he took it private, like right at the bottom. Relisted it 3 years later at a huge margin, and then I should have known.
Delisted, took it private, the company. Sorry.
Michael Dell took his own company profitable and then just relisted later, and then that was
Okay.
and then with Sears it was something similar. This guy was just like, and then by that stage we were so committed into it, and now they're not allowing me to reload my gun with other bullets. Yeah, and I rode that thing down into the ground, and yeah, it was painful. And then I negotiated with them saying, I've analyzed everything in the portfolio. Sears was a big mistake. I went around the whole country. I had 169 clients, buddy. So I saw every single one of them I had face to face with. And I said, we're going to do it. Next year, we will double. We had done very poorly. And I'd literally just got back from that 3-week epic, seeing everyone and getting everyone on board. And in fact, getting commitments for more money. Because people were
Right.
convinced about my thesis. And the Sunday morning, I woke up and an email was to all my clients that the fund was Rainet was pulling out and the fund was being shut down. You know what I mean? And like it just blew
Sure.
my mind. And it's like I've got a scar here on my thumb. My thumb was almost off. I punched through a painting, and on the way out, you know what I mean? I was.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's it. Off now. I'm not ready to jump, but they've thrown me out the planes, so to speak. I fielded 100 calls that Sunday. People shouting at me, calling me, because they're like saying you lied. You said
Right.
you're in. Now you're abandoning
Yeah. You
ship,
can exactly.
and that
Yeah.
destroyed my network that I'd built, over many many years, and. Yeah, and yes, yeah. And then I had a liquidate. Now I'm one of the largest holders of like options in General Motors and Sears long dated options and AIG long dated options, because you had vehicles post the top. They listed some of these rescue vehicles, and now I have to liquidate, and I'm a big holder and stuff. Oh, and that drew the performance even down even more. And this is all my money's in the fund. So now I'm
Your
trying
own
to, and
money,
I've been
right?
given a deadline to get out. And so we liquidated everything, and then there was like a month period now where I have to go through making sure that money returns from the fund to their rightful owners. That was also a nightmare. And 23rd of December, the fund closed 2018, and I felt such a great sense of relief. And the guy who had inspired me to basically, he had been telling me for years to quit, because there's one guy I couldn't get to invest, who had changed my mind about the world. I phoned
Okay.
him up to tell him, hey, finally out, because I knew a little bit. Like, he had a wine farm. I wanted to work with him, develop the wine farm, and I phoned him. They told me he died on the 15th, and I'd been made like
Oh,
executor, like advisor to the state because of the trust in Mauritius. The old man made me promise the last time I saw him, which was probably July 2018, that I would not allow his son and his wife, because he had many wives, but he only has one son with the second wife. Won't let them destroy his legacy. And I said to him, no, I
okay.
won't. Like Chamonix wine farm in Franschhoek, you might know it.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I remember you
and
told me the
then
story. I think you told me the story in
yeah,
2019.
yeah, and then so then that whole year kind of, and I was gonna build, like, my whole idea was to build a center for people who are burnt out, creatives, and because creativity stimulates your brain neurons, and often people being able to tell their story, um, even if it's in a fictional way, and just have fun again, that wakes up part of our brains that trauma often turns off. Because remember, if you are shock horror and you're being hunted and you're feeling traumatized, your brain, your body will not give much energy to your creative spheres. It's more, do I
Right.
run or do I fight? You know, it's
Mm.
binary, one or zeros, and then and that's where I get really excited, because to go back a bit, like in 1911, the Public Investment Commission was formed by CEO was Vincent van der Bijl, who in 1908 had invented the transatlantic telephone at Bell in America. And Jan Smuts phoned him and
Okay.
said, "Please come back. We want to build a sovereign wealth fund, particularly to make South Africa self-sufficient and insulate us from global shock doctrine or shock, because which makes sense, like build your castle, make
Yeah.
it tough."
Strong.
And that
Mm.
thing still exists, and that thing was exactly in there. So, but that's why we didn't have to enter World War One. By then, we had built more than enough capacity that we weren't pulled into it. And then,
Okay.
Vincent van der Bijl died in 1948 as chairman of ESCOM with a C. But all the things and all this stuff, hard work like ISCOR and all that stuff was stripped out. Oh, and that's where globalization is bad. Like, surely South Africa can, at this stage, given our and take the leadership to say, we have a problem in this country. Our infrastructure is falling apart. We can fix it, but let's fix it properly in
Mm.
a way that's not going to line like 4 or 5 guys' pockets. We've done this so many times. Where's
Mm.
mining BE? Where it's at zero again. Where's financial services BE? It's at zero again. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. We can't have charade business. We've got to have real business that fixes real problems, and then you're going to see it in the rand.
Mm.
Back in the day, that it was $1.40 to the rand. It was the other way around. And now we're starting to
Mm.
see, and it's in my humble opinion, and it's our brightest minds are convincing supposedly the loud. Okay, because it's no longer the brightest minds. It's now people with the biggest uh, microphone to the most impact on the ground. The guys who run the big financial services companies are not making uh, the right decisions because they've invested so much in their international strategy that they've forgotten that they are South African. I mean,
Yeah.
I got a job again in December of 21 with Ashburton, which was a small obscure company that RMB owned 50% of in Jersey and Guernsey. That they then, because it was such a mess, they bought the other 50%. So I was working for them, but I was actually being paid. I was being seconded by RMB to there. And
Okay.
okay, although I wasn't in the best shape, and there were some issues around, like, I just wanted to work for them for a little bit and get money and get out of there. But when I got in there, and I realized the shallowness of some of the analysis, and then
Mm.
I got suspended because I made South Africa my top pick. And I was told that is not, because we in our fund can't hold South Africa. So they said that's disloyal and not to script because it's an English bank. And like, I mean, I suppose
Right.
technically I was, but at the time, that's my opinion. And back in the day, you
Mm.
had people with varying opinions. If you look at the way that Alan Gray used to be run, Alan Gray was the very first CFA in South Africa, and he
Okay.
apparently wrote his exam in the office of the UCT rector. I don't know when, early on.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
way he ran money, he would carve up the pot. He got young guys who would want to work hard, and he paid them. I mean, Sanlam Global Best Ideas is a bit of a copy of the Value Fund, the Alan Gray Value Fund,
Okay.
and
Okay.
uh, and he rewarded the guys, and people had to could have different opinions, because in South Africa it was very important, because remember, in South Africa at that stage that's why I didn't want to play in the South African equity market. I found it boring. It was basically, you were either long
Okay.
SA or you're long the hedges, gold miners, whatever,
Yeah.
the mining, and that was it. It was a very bifurcated, and there was guys like Piet Viljoen that I was at Investec for exactly for that. I was there for a year, and that year Piet Viljoen was there for 9 months, and the guy fascinated me on his own, cowboy, then obviously I start reading up, listening to everything he says, and clearly
Okay.
Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and all these things came out. But it was a fascinating time, and he's ex Alan Gray. So then I heard that the guy
All
from
right.
Oasis is ex Alan Gray, and then I was like, wow, okay, I got to join a value house. But at the time, my wife was working for Alan Gray, so that I couldn't go to Alan Gray,
Okay.
and we later
Okay.
divorced. I should have just gone to Alan Gray. That's joking, but you know what I mean. Like I could have gone to Coronation. I mean, dude, I should have been one of the founding members of Coronation, but I blew it because I went out can I tell you the story quickly?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I resigned from R&B. I'm living in Pretoria, working in Sandton. I can't take it. I just resign, pack my car, and I leave. I don't tell my parents nothing. I find them halfway to
Okay.
Cape Town. Because before I left, Coronation wanted me to join them and not R&B. And at the time, Coro was small, so I was like, R&B, it's like, and I was going to go.
Mm.
Literally, our division was
What
called
year was
Special
this?
Forces. Hi,
What year was this?
2003, 4, there, around there, just before I
Okay.
started at Sundown. So I left R&B, and then it was like also around December, 13th, 14th of December. Got back to Cape Town. No, I just moved in with my girlfriend at the time, who was going to become my wife, who I tied second with in honors for financial analysis portfolio management under Professor Haim at UCT, who's the guy who got me into Investec. You can see how this world
Okay.
works. It's tight knit world. Like, her dad is this big CEO of a list, was of one of the divisions of a JSE, and so it was like, it was an amazing time. So I just moved back in with her. But as I got back, I phoned the lady at Coronation. I said, I'm back. I made a mistake. I really like to work for you guys. And she's like, Andre, it's December. Like, I don't think anything's going to happen now. But, I've got your number. You know, and I thought, okay, cool.
Mm.
I can have December off. I've got some money in my bank account. I'd sold a BMW that my parents had given me, so I had a bit of money in the bank. And I went out to Long Street with my friends, and it was the time that stuff came out, Absinthe. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like a psychedelic bark liqueur that you had to sugar to
Yeah.
make it taste better. And we did Long Street. I
Yeah.
met my friends. Some of them, like Dave and Gary,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
did a pub crawl, and literally, like, next thing I woke up and I grabbed my phone. Hello, I was at home, and the lady from Cora, and she's like, "Andre, great
Okay.
news! I spoke to the guys. They reckon, yeah, we're on." And I'm like, I can hardly, when you're so hungover, you can't talk. I'm like,
Yes.
yes, we are definitely on. When? She says 3 o'clock. Now I look at the
Oh
watch.
my
It's
gosh.
like 11:30. So I'm like,
Okay.
okay. And I put down the phone, and now I'm going. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm sweating. I'm like, it's one of those Cape Town December days. It's like 31 degrees outside, sticky. I'm
Mm.
showering, just puking, and just trying to get ready. Anyway, get my suit on, off I go. And the guy who was the CIO at the time, was a very famous guy. He's left now. I forget his name. And I just knew, okay, this is the guy, you know? And I nailed it.
Yeah.
I nailed it. Whatever you threw at me. And he's like,
Yeah.
you know when you know you nailed it. The guy's smiling. We're talking to each other about family and connections. I've got the job, man.
Yeah.
And the guy leaves. He says, sorry, I'll be back now. Oh, yeah, I'll see you now. And I even remember going to because I'd sweated so much underneath my suit that I didn't want to show him. So I went to the aircon and still just started to cool down. And I was just like, I'm spent. And next thing I hear something behind me. Here's a new guy. Now I've got to do another hour interview. And
Okay.
it was a disaster. I had nothing left,
Really?
you know. So I will never. I wish I could find those two guys and hear what they said to each other. Well, I know it must have been like, "Yeah, he's good, eh?" And the other guy must have been like, "My dead
That's
body."
right. No.
And that's but me at that stage, like I'm like, whatever. I don't care. Take December off, party December. Cape Town's hopping. I'm loving it. I'll look in January, maybe February. I think I only started looking like end of January. And then I just got rejected everywhere. Because, something had changed in kind of the BE code. And I think I'd become known as a bit of a hopper, a guy who will just pull the plug. Because it was relatively short. And that's, it took me some really like months where, it's boring. Like we're in Cape Town, but now my fiance at the time, she's working at Allen Gray. So we're pretty comfortable. We're all right. You know what I mean? And but I couldn't find a job and I was bored and bored and bored. And I applied at Damlin to be a lecturer. They said next semester. I was like, okay, whatever. Nike, they just said no. It's not. I'm a finance. There's no one in finance. I was like, but I would like to work in marketing. But then I read in the paper that a guy from Coronation was leaving Corky to join Sanlam. And Sanlam was decided they're going to the revolutionary idea. South Africans can run money, global money from South Africa. Because the internet had become a thing. And everyone said it'll never work because Old Mutual had gone and bought a team in America. They lost around about $750 million in 2 years. Mutual also around $500 million in the UK trying to buy a team. So people because the thing is that everyone was just giving their money to American managers to run the American exposure and stuff like that.
Okay.
So because everyone was like, what do you guys know? You're so far from the pulse of, we said, that's good. That makes us better because we flew to, and then we had a contrarian strategy. We pulled up Corky's seriously deep value, Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, father value investing type stuff. And but see, I was pretty good at because of my time at R&B, I was very good at extracting data from Bloomberg and the different data services because they asked me to prove that the risk-free rate is 8%. So it took me about a month and a half of working, but I proved it. And then, so I had these skills and we could pull up databases of lots of companies all around the world and look. And I just said, well, two sore thumbs, Brazil and South Korea. The whole market trades on 6 times earnings, which is a deep value stock because the reciprocal of 6. Remember, price divided by earnings. If you switch it around, it's earnings divided by price, which is your yield, your owner's yield, so called. That's over 15%, and these things were growing. And then once again, I realized there was a stigma attached. South Korea, emerging market, nuclear threat. They'd just gone through a bit of a credit bubble. A couple of the banks went bankrupt. But that's the best time. And Napoleon actually said in 1700s or sometime, he says, the time to buy is on the sound of cannons, and the time to sell is on the sound of champagne corks. It's your Wolf of Wall Street. Like when things are too
Mm.
good and people start telling you why it will remain such forever, that's a problem. And
Yeah.
dude, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
a little bit like in the Matrix, a weird movie or something, because I don't know where the voices are that can, if anyone, and go look at Bill Ackman and those guys. And there was another guy, David Einhorn. Like he took on Elon way back when, and he
Right.
almost, luckily he's got a huge fund, but like some of these companies, the valuations don't make sense because people have fallen in love with today. I mean, Elon Musk owns Twitter, so like he's trying to, it's that it must be whatever he says is right. And
Mm.
I
Mm.
don't know, dude. Like and South Africa in particular, and Namibia, and there's something I want to talk about as well, and the whole of Southern Africa. We've got more than enough developmental problems of our own, and we've got a huge situation happening in Congo. If we don't pull ourselves right and come right, we're setting up for quite a disastrous situation, and that'll get everyone excited, because instead of fighting, we can become an army corps of problem solvers, and we can identify. And I think it's happening from Pretoria, but like I really suggest you come and have a look for yourself. I know I had scars, bro. I couldn't wait to get out of this place, because remember, and maybe now I'm gonna reverse back a bit. Tuckies was a horrible time for me, because I
Okay.
just didn't get played, and rugby was my life, and even though every practice
Mm.
we crushed it, it's because I was friends with the black players like Anyani Shimangi and Mfundo Mazia. We didn't get played. We went to every game, we sat on every bench, and it was horrible. So, and then one of my own teammates hurt my ankle, and I went into a spiral, and that's why I blew up like my first year so big. Everyone thought it was about the academics, but it had more to do
Mm.
with the rugby. And second year was similar, and like so, I couldn't wait to get out of. I had a really great time once I. So and I want that excitement. I got my economics, because the only class I was getting distinctions in was economics, and Prof West, the youngest doctor, he was a doctorate in economics at 23 already back then. He said to me, "I've got a new course. There's only 12 spots. Will you join?" I was like, book. And it was great.
Okay.
We had a bond trader that that had basically had burnout, and he came and lectured. So he was awesome. He organized this all vac work at places. It was amazing. There was a
Okay.
palpable excitement, and like that class, we obviously we helped each other. It wasn't we wanted to defeat the university. We were all I wanted to, we all wanted to get A's, and it was not gimme A's, but we did a lot of group work, and it was amazing. And that
Mm.
that morphed
Mm.
into Gibbs. And I think there's a space now for, especially, I know I needed a gap year. I should have had a gap year, and I had a scholarship to potential Woodridge in South Africa and PE area, and then overseas potential Tunbridge in UK, and interest from Australia. And I should have gone for it, But then again, maybe I would have ended up like Dan Vickerman, who was someone I knew quite well from Cape Town, because I was quite friendly with the Bishops guys. I played a lot of club rugby with them at Villages. And that guy, he ended up hanging himself with a judo belt after a glittering career. Great job. No one understood and there's something similar happening to some sports guy in Scotland, the fullback. People don't realize that adjustment, like big adjustments in life that seem to be seamless for some people, or even
Mm.
perceptually from the outside seem to be smooth, is trauma. Change is
Yeah.
trauma per definition. And
Mm.
if we don't realize that, um I don't know. I think a lot of people want a sense of purpose again, and I know it sounds like a rehash of the last one, but if what makes, and I'll go back to that. If you put amazing people, that's what Hendrik de Tooy, when he started Investec Asset Management. Investec at the time, their core business was financing the office furniture and equipment for lawyers and doctors, and he convinced them,
Okay.
well, let's do asset management. And he said to them, "Give me 20 million bucks." He went and bought a building in Cape Town because he knew he could get into the insurers somehow. And that was and I don't know what their asset base is now, but it's huge. But all you then do from that stage is go find different types of personalities and perspectives, put them in a room, and instead of profit, which we want to profit that leads to an uplifting polarity for everyone. And that's all we need to
Okay.
do. And it'll work, because in the end, Alma, what money is, it's a permission slip. Is that thing you're doing, is it a good idea? Is it not going to mess anyone's life up? And is it going to be good for you and the people around you? Tick. Yes, you have a permission to do it. Because normally the permission that people need is to have a equipment and specialists to help them. But by taking raw land and then letting the people use the equipment and producing something that then produces something, that's alchemy. Because then we've taken time, and instead of that yellow machinery standing still, we can create something that creates something that gives people a sense of purpose and a reason to live. And because the problem's getting bigger and bigger, if we've got our university students, regular BCom students, they were all expected to get jobs. All I know is I got a distinction cum laude undergrad and honors postgrad, and I struggled to
Yeah.
get. It's hard to get a job, and then people must realize you've got to fight for that job. But if the job sucks, and that because the thing is, the sort of jobs that the only ones I would consider were ones with significant upward trajectory and excitement and rewarding, and we can give that to many people, and it shouldn't be about the money. It was my life, and that's what I told you back then. It's like I look back to those carefree days where I was just doing my job and I loved it. Before I took
I love
myself too
it.
seriously and wanted to be the biggest fund manager in the world immediately, like way before everyone beat every record. I wanted to be $1 billion fund manager before I was
40.
35, and I looked
Oh,
well. The
35.
record was like 41, so I thought I was going to smash this record, and then, I got ahead of myself.
Okay.
Sorry, man, I've monopolized this. You can clearly see I'm in a good mood.
No,
I
no.
also want to hear what's going on your side, bro.
No, this podcast isn't about me, it's about the guest. So, yeah, like
Yeah, but I think you got to
I
play,
think
like
we
you
can.
said. Unfortunately, we know each other, and the fact is, I think our dreams. That's what I was explaining to someone. Our Venn diagram, the common area between our two circles is very big. Like I think it's like the universe bringing us all together, and it's exciting, man. It's like that's why I'm gonna keep hammering you to come to Pretoria. Let me see if I can organize maybe. Because one of my dreams, for example, I want to merge SAA with Ethiopian Airlines and Angolan Airlines, or TAG. I think it would be a wonderful national African carrier, and we can open our network to Africa. It's very expensive to travel into Africa. We've been talking about going to our secret island there at the middle of the planet. To get there is like
Oh, right. Yeah.
37,000 through Angola. For a six,
Right.
it should be a max 5-6 hour flight
Sure.
from. Well, it's exactly halfway between Portugal and Cape Town, if you kind of get it. So, why should it be so expensive? But this really exciting stuff happening. As absurd as the world is getting, I've learned the one big hack that I've learned of late is I'm focusing on the positive. Let's move forward. Don't get angry, Andre. Don't get angry. Because I would bottle, blah, blah, and it was every time my explosion came was normally when I was about to make a breakthrough, and then it was almost like, okay, you back to square one again, or square minus 99, climb back up the hill. Yeah, but yeah, dude, I'm feeling good. Yeah, that's it, I suppose.
Cool.
I don't know if you
That's
have
it.
particular
That's it.
questions for me.
We can
I mean,
call
I've
it.
spoken so much, but I mean, we wanted to talk about Steinhoff like at the beginning, and there are many obvious frauds I can tell you all around, but and you said it last time, the biggest frauds is the entire financial services industry. What literally, whether people know it or not, maybe there are only
Mm,
those few, and the others don't. It's the way it's structured is not good for the country, and we need reform.
mm,
And I.
yeah.
And the levers are there. The levers are there, and we must stop being so anti-government. We can have a good government that is small and efficient and well run. Now, look what's happened
Mm.
now post this
But
election. Now
that's a
we've
whole
got a
nother
bigger
topic.
cabinet, right? But
Yeah,
it's they
yeah,
interlinked,
bigger
eh?
cabinet. Yeah,
Money and politics.
yeah. No, of course. Lekker, man.
Yeah.
I think we can
Well,
cut
we
it
made
there
it.
for now. And if
What last
anyone's
time we were
got,
43? Yeah, we're 57. Okay, but the other thing. Now we've talked nothing about fun stuff. I'm
yeah,
busy
no,
working
don't worry.
on something very interesting that can change this whole thing, because it's all about movement.
Uh,
Eh? We want to be anti-entropy. So I'm busy working on a route that is alternate to the current route, and that will be episode whenever we shoot again.
I thought let's cut it there, and we can always have another one.
Yeah,
If
good.
anyone's got questions about
But please don't
what
wait another
Andre
year.
said,
Don't wait another year.
no. Yeah, definitely. It's my podcast. I can do what I want.
I'm joking. Yeah, of
um,
course.
well, if you got questions for Andre, put them in the comment section. Yeah, and we'll get to them and answer them. And yeah,
Oh,
lekker,
well,
man.
I'd enjoy that. Okay, buddy.